Okay, so we're going to continue with chapter 5. And chapter 5 is about leadership, but we're also going to be talking about something that people usually ignore, and this is fellowship, right? So we have two aspects. We have leadership and we have fellowship. And here's the truth. You can't have leadership without followers. So today we're going to be talking about, or answering rather, what makes a great leader and also what makes a great follower. All right, so let's get started. Now, let's define leadership first. Leadership is influencing people's attitudes and behaviors towards a goal. Now, this is what makes great leadership. We have we have this list or the test of leadership. First, does a leader have a clear vision? Okay. Second, do they communicate with others to get them on board? Do they have good communication? So first, do they have vision? Second, do they have communication? Third, do they build mutual trust and respect? Right, this is very important. Do they create supporting infrastructure? Is there's help that the leader provides so that everybody can succeed? Uh, do they enable followers to do their best? This is a very important quality of leadership. As leaders, you want your followers to do their best and perform, right? Do they leave the organization better that they found it, right? So if you have all of these check marks, you have what it takes to be a great leader. Okay. So leadership isn't just about power, it's about making an impact, right? So just ask yourself this. Have you had a teacher or a coach who passed all of these tests and have all of these check marks, right? Most of us have, and those people have the qualities of a great leader. Okay, so let's jump to the next one here. So this slide is huge, right? So what do followers want? This is what followers look for a leader, the qualities in a leader. So first you have direction. So direction, you can say it's purpose, passion, and a clear idea of what to do. Second, you have trust. And under trust, we have qualities that are similar to it, integrity, candor, and consistency, right? Then we have hope, the kindling of optimism, right? Yes, we can achieve the goals. Yes, I believe in you. Yes, you are capable. With the help of your teammates and myself, you'll get there, right? That's hope. And results, accomplishing difficult tasks, and success breeds success. So all of these four qualities is what followers want in a leader, right? So if a leader is missing one of these, people tend to stop following. So as leaders, as supervisors, as managers, we have to strive to get all of these qualities and to work to achieve these qualities. This is very important. Okay, let's go to the next. Okay, so there's this concept of servant leadership. And think about how, well, this would be flipped, right? So it's like leadership from upside down, right? So you are there as the supervisor, as the manager, to serve the team first, not the other way around, right? We as supervisors, we are there to facilitate, to serve the team and our our fellowship. So look at these traits, right? We have listening, empathy, growth, community, stewardship, right? Uh, these are the qualities, and the idea is if your people succeed, if your subordinates succeed, if your fellows succeed, you succeed as a supervisor, right? So their success is your success, right? So this is the concept of servant leadership. Okay, so the bedrock of supervision. So we have two main things here. We have trust and we have ethics. So trust is when people believe you are reliable and honest and effective, right? So, and ethics is doing what's right, even when no one's watching, right? That's in essence what ethics is, right? So now look at this. Be people oriented, stick to values, serve the greater good. This is all within ethics. And the truth is, you can't lead without trust, right? So these two go hand in hand with one another. And these two values, trust and ethics, they serve as the bedrock, as the basis for supervision, right? If you have these two qualities, uh, your subordinates will trust you and will follow you and will follow directives and instructions. Okay, so let me move out of the way here. Now let's go to the next one here. Let's get practical here. So delegation is basically giving tasks and authority to others. So we as supervisors, we can't do everything, right? Often we have to delegate to others. Delegation means, assigning tasks so that others can do them for you, or do them for the project, for the team. So let's look at some of these steps. So first, you assign duties, right? It's like Johnny or Jane, you're going to be in charge of this particular role. So you're assigning duties. And by assigning duties, you're granting permission, you're giving authority to these people, agency, right? And we expect performance. We expect them to achieve the goal, to achieve the objective. And here's the balance, right? We have responsibility versus accountability, right? So responsibility, the obligation to perform the assigned tasks, and accountability is the expectation to accept credit or blame for the results. Now, even though we delegate to others, we as supervisors, as managers, we're still responsible. We're accountable, right? So even though you didn't work on a particular task, it falls on you, right? So there has to be responsibility, there has to be accountability. And you as a supervisor you have to be involved and be aware of what's happening, right? Even though you have delegated the task. Okay. So a lot of cases, and I've been there myself, um, especially when you're a new supervisor and maybe you were less than a year with a particular supervising position. There's this fear that I'm not going to delegate, I'm going to do it myself, right? And this is a big mistake because you, as a supervisor, you have many things to juggle. There's a lot of tasks that you have to perform and do and keep track of. And you have to delegate, right? And we, as sometimes new supervisors, we tend to have this fear that, well, if I delegate and assign it to somebody else, they're not good enough, right? They're gonna mess it up. They're not gonna do it right. I'd rather do it myself, right? And I'm looking at this list here. So why supervisors avoid delegation, or delegating tasks, right? So either we fear that so and so is not good enough. They're going to be make mistakes. I'd rather do it myself. Uh, if it's done right, I have to do it right, and this is wrong, right? This is wrong because at the end of the day, you're the supervisor, right? You have other responsibilities, and you have to delegate. Now, what are the benefits of delegating, right? So employees develop self-confidence, right? Once they achieve a particular task or a goal, they realize like, hey, you know, I am capable. I can do this. And this is good for the supervisor because it frees up time that can be used to different things, right? To improve processes, to keep track of metrics, to look at dashboards, etc. Um, this is crucial, right? We as supervisors, we can't do everything, right? We have to delegate, and this is the classic dilemma. All right. Now, in when it comes to delegation of tasks, there are two assumptions or two different, theories of management, and you're gonna cover these down when you take other classes. But theory X and theory Y, and theory X is I don't like this theory because it's very negative, and it assumes that most people don't like work, and assumes that a lot of people just go to work to get a paycheck, right? It also assumes that employees avoid responsibility. They're not, they don't like responsibility, and employees must be coerced or, forced to do their jobs. This is a very negative, autocratic way of thinking. Back in the 50s, back in the 40s, this is how managers saw employees. They don't want to be here. They just want to get the money. They just want to get paid. Uh, and employees don't like responsibility. They don't like their job. Now, on the other hand, we have theory Y. And theory Y makes a complete opposite assumption where employees enjoy their work. Okay, employees, they want to be, they're seeking responsibilities, and employees can effectively self-direct. Now, in reality, it depends on the setting, right? Because if you work at a McDonald's or a Domino's Pizza, right, their management structure is going to be more theory X, right? But let's say that you are an architect. Let's say you're a professional. In the professional setting, you're going to see more theory Y. There's more independence. There's more responsibility when it comes to employees. Um, but either way, we want to be more of a theory Y mindset because based on this way of thinking, this is how employees are going to be perceived as. Uh, Chances are, if you treat your employees with theory Y, that you assume that they want to be there, that they enjoy their work, that they're responsible, they're capable, uh, they're gonna react in a certain way, and they're gonna uh, react positively. Whereas theory X, if you treat them like they don't know what they're doing, that they don't want to be there, they're gonna respond in turn, right? So we want to be more on theory Y. Okay. Now, so there are more strict styles. We have the autocratic, right? Autocratic is basically uh, whatever you say, I'm the manager, you listen to me, right? So command and control, right? But we also have participative, right? Which is you hear your employees' opinions, you involve them in the process. So uh, it's kind of like in the middle, right? So this is a different style. You have free reign, which is, basically no barriers or very little barriers, very little. Uh, they the employees uh, they take initiative. Now, different styles of leadership serve in different industries. For instance, let's go back again to McDonald's or Domino's. When it comes to those types of industries, an autocratic style might be best, right? Because there's a very strict process that they have to follow. Uh, but let's say that you work and maybe you're a teacher, right? Maybe a participative style where, the teachers communicate with their manager and there's more participation, that's more suitable. And think about, in free reign, think about architects or chemists that, they have more freedom maybe when it comes to what they want to work on or some experiment per se. So is think of this as a continuum, right? Okay. So high leader control styles. So, I went over this a little bit here. So autocratic relies on formal authority, threats, pressure, and class control. Bureaucratic emphasizes strict compliance with the organizational policies, right? So this style would just follow the rules and basically make sure that everybody's in compliance. Uh, then we have directive communication, conveying the employees to exactly what, how, and why something is to be accomplished, right? So now the opposite, right? So you have general supervision, uh, gives you freedom. The general supervision sets goals and limits, but also allows employees to decide how to achieve those goals, right? That is like a different take on and a more open and more free reign style. You have participative management, which is allowing employees to influence and share in the decision making, like I said before. Um, and you have stretch goals, right? Which is challenge the employees, targeted objectives used in these environments to present a challenge, right? Now, this is more of a theory Y approach, right? And where you assume that workers want to be there and they want to have responsibilities. So, okay, let's move to the next one. So, so why involve employees, right? For supervisors, we have better decisions, right? And if you delegate, you have more time to focus on the big picture questions. Now, for employees, you want to have participation because employees that way they learn faster and they feel valued and they grow professionally. So participation is just not being nice and having employees involved, but it's effective, right? We want to have employees participate so they can uh, start getting their feet wet and contribute, right? So this is the most important concept here. We have to be adaptable, right? No single leadership style works all the time. So great leaders adjust based on the situation, the employee, the task. So leadership is like a slider, right? You have this slider here. Depending on the situation, depending on the employee, we could use different styles. So we move it depending on what's needed, right? Now let's talk about the other half, right? So fellowship. And fellowship is the willingness to follow a leader. So great followers, they manage themselves, they're self-managing, they stay committed to the vision, to the goals, to the organization, and are competent, right? They're competent in their roles and they're ethical, they act ethically. They demonstrate courage, honesty, discretion, and credibility. And here's the truth, right? Great teams are great followers too, right? Okay. Now, this slide here shows the four types. of the fellowship matrix. So on one side you have passive, which they do the bare minimum, right? So passive followers. You have the conformist followers, which follow without thinking, right? Then you have on the other, on the active quadrant, of the active line here, you have the alienated. They think critically, but negative, right? They they are very critical, but they don't feel engaged or involved, right? And then we have, in the active, right? But in the independent critical thinking, we have the engaged and independent, right? So what's the goal, right? We want the exemplary follower, right? And here's the question, right? Which one are you, right? A lot of people tend to be, especially uh, people that are very, they just take whatever it is, the instructions, they tend to be passive, right? Or to a certain extent, they tend to be conformists, right? You want to be on the active, you want to be an active follower, but, uh, or encourage, activeness, right? So active workers and independent critical thinkers, this is the right combination that we want, right? As for followers. Now, so let's wrap it up. So leadership is influence, trust, adaptability, and fellowship is commitment, responsibility, and growth. And the best organizations, they have both strong leaders and strong followers. So the final question would be, what would you rather be? A leader that no one wants to follow, or someone people choose to follow, right? Because that's the difference between authority and leadership. Okay. So I'm going to stop here, guys, and we'll go to chapter 6.